All right, so today we're going to be looking at Sargon of Akkad, who I don't really like. He comes off pretentious. And what's his actual expertise? That'd be my question. Um, but anyway, he apparently has some solution to how Mongolia solved the fertility crisis. My guess is it's going to soft shoe some kind of like, look, guys, we can keep women's rights. All we have to do is just and then as you dive into it, you realize that their fertility rate is actually due to something completely unstable or something completely different. So let's get into it.
So recently, I spoke at the Natalist conference in Austin, Texas, and I gave a speech which I entitled The Ideology of the Margins, the Unpaid Wages of Child Rearing. And in this speech, I talked about how, through ideology, the West has made being a mother a low status occupation. And this is actually a
This is actually true, somewhat true. Um, because there's not a paycheck attached to having kids, it's seen as like a low status thing, even though it's going to be worth more than most paychecks that any woman could ever bring in, right? Like her actual long term economic value is going to be way more than whatever paycheck she brings in as a mother, right? But because of the way that Western capitalism has kind of framed value, there's not a dollar sign attached to it, and the value is a societal value. It's a long term societal value that isn't immediately obvious, that doesn't have some kind of value attached to it. So it seems like that might be causing why everyone views motherhood as this low status thing. Like it's not awesome, it's not cool, it's not high status.
really, really, really bad thing for the continuation of our civilization. If we want to have a civilization in the future, well, people have to turn up for it. We can't replace it with marginal issues such as homosexuals, transsexuals, or immigrants, because these groups do not reproduce our civilization. They either don't reproduce anything or they reproduce something else. And so we have to take this very, very seriously. And I say this as someone who has a family and has reproduced significantly. So I know what I'm talking about on this. And this was very, very well received. And it was particularly well delivered, if I may say so myself, if I could. Because I watched it back, because you never know how these things are when you're in
Lots of prattle, lots of like nothing. Get into it.
the middle of them. But I don't mind me blowing my own trumpet. But I'm not a great public speaker. I did a really good choose. Have to go back to the margins. They have to just be something that is a niche occupation for certain people. And we've seen, in fact, in the transgender issue in Britain, the what is a woman question, the videos that I've done on it have been mainly focused around access to certain bathrooms, because that seems to be the majority of the context and the majority of the substance of the actual issue of the definition of woman in the United Kingdom, who gets to access certain bathrooms. Now that's a very niche issue. That's a very, very, very small scale niche concern of very few people in the country. And what I'm hoping that this Supreme Court ruling means is that particular issue goes back to the margins. We don't need to continue discussing it now. The question is resolved in favor of the majority, who are the people who reproduce our civilization going into the future.
Also, yeah, that's not a bad. I mean, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Why is Coldplay Vita La Vida at the bottom of your suggested? Um, and you're not subscribed to your own channel. That's a bit concerning. Um, but okay, so yeah, this is fine. This is like decent rhetoric to like get politicians and get people in government and large organizations back on track. Is like remind them that yeah, these are niche issues we don't need to obsess over. We should be thinking about larger scale issues, not transgender washrooms, right? I guess that's fine, but this I don't know. That's not going to solve everything. Because all the transgender people would have to do is they would have to blow up their concerns into something more major to re-steal attention. And it doesn't really challenge the transgender movement anyway. All it's saying is that it's niche. Oh, so as soon as they're not niche, then we should give them attention again. Is that the implication, or?
The future. So these are the.
But it's not bad. It's not bad. What he's saying isn't a horrible thing. It's like, hey, let's use the rhetoric that these are niche issues, and harp on that to get politicians and world leaders to focus on bigger picture stuff. Okay, sure, I guess.
People whose concerns, if the majority, the reproductive majority, want to have a civilization in a certain way and not another way, well, I'm sorry, but the unreproductive minority just have to give way on this. It's just the way it has to be. And what I said at the end of this is that we are going to need a natalist ideology going forward into the future. One wasn't needed in prior eras because there was a lack of birth control and the civilization itself was formatted around families. I mean, you may.
So this whole speech was like, we need a natalist ideology. Okay. Okay. So I hear a lot of people acting all like profound. What about the fertility crisis? What about it? It's like, do you have any solution? But okay, so he's going to get into Mongolia.
I remember from, if you're anywhere near my age, you remember how familial our civilization felt and how family friendly everywhere you went was. It was expected that families would come with their kids to practically anything, unless it was something that was deliberately for adults only. Everything was child friendly. And now virtually nothing is. It seems that our civilization has completely marginalized families, which of course puts it in people's mind that they shouldn't have.
A lot of that's urbanization. A lot of that is cities are giant concrete melting pots for the brains of babies. They're not hospitable to children.
Families, because families therefore are a kind of low status burden. And that is an ideological position. And we will need a pro-natalist ideology to reformat things back to how they used to be. I'll leave a link in the description to this because this is about 20 minutes long. And I like I said, I genuinely think it's one of my best speeches and one of my best arguments. I'm very pleased with how it came out because, like I said, when at the time you don't know how it's going. But anyway, the reason that I'm doing this is not just to blow my own trumpet. I saw this.
Just gonna link a tweet. I know how to solve the fertility problem in all West countries. Ban salutes. True. Wait, okay, based. I was about to make fun of her, but based. Why? I explain. She can't even speak English. People say fertility is so well because raise child's expensive. It give people money, then people make more child. This is not true. Finland, Estonia. That's actually true. This is true. She's actually right. Australia, I'll do this. No work. Still no child. South Korea tried this as well. Reason? I am woman. I know how women think. Women not care about the reality. We care about the emotion. What give most feel good emotion, attention, and a social status? She's right. Right now, West have culture that makes slut be famous. Regular girls see this, they think, okay, I'm gonna be slut. Now they slut, never be mother. never be mother. If have child, they be slut, mother, raise baby, become a trash adult. She's actually based. She's actually based. That's true. No, she's 100% right. It's a social issue. It's a spiritual issue. It's not a financial issue. Stupid communists, stupid Marxists keep trying to throw, oh, it's money, it's hard, oh, it's money. Not like kind of, but really it's a social status about caring too much about money. Women see children as hampering their career. So the problem isn't that childbirth is hampering their career. The problem is that women care too much about their career. And we as a society put too much value on career for women and money. We're not thinking about broader issues. And then the other problem is, yeah, we glorify sluts and boss babes, and we won't shame sluts. She's actually right. She says ban sluts, easier shame sluts. Slut shaming would unironically fix the fertility crisis or take away women's rights, either way. But when she says ban sluts, what she's really saying is reduce women's sexual autonomy and shame them in the culture. That's what all of us red pill people are pushing for. When we say take away women's rights, what we mean is they shouldn't be allowed to be sexually promiscuous. They shouldn't be allowed to choose their own partners. And we should shame them for being sexually promiscuous. out in the society. But yeah, you could try to foster a culture of like, oh, it's good to be a mother. Yeah, you could like create propaganda. Um, yeah, sure. Yeah, you can do that, I guess. I mean, the problem is there's tons of other propaganda promoting women to be sluts. So you're fighting a very big machine that wants women to be sluts. So good luck. Like generally like positive affirmational propaganda doesn't work. It doesn't hold steam for very long because there's no money in it. Like the reason that there's all this propaganda trying to get you to be a drug addict and a degenerate is because you spend money being a degenerate. You spend money on drugs. You spend money on addictions. You spend money on uh, cheap pleasures. So it's a self-sustaining system by creating more addicts, and then it builds a customer base. But with this, like, let's make mothers, you basically are just relying on NGOs like the Heritage Foundation to just hopefully continually prop this thing up. Hopefully it works. And then you're fighting something that has an economic incentive behind it to slutify and get women into the workplace. So the problem is probably bigger in that we have to look at the incentive structure for why women are pushed into the workplace, why women are pushed to be sluts, and why mothers are considered a burden. It's not just that they're shamed and there's a social status quo, it's also that there's incentives because of the way we've set up the West and because of certain values we've allowed to permeate into the culture. It's a larger problem now where it's like, okay, you would need to ban it. Basically, you would need like just trying to foster some kind of counterculture isn't, in my opinion, going to be enough because it's never going to be as competitive as the current economically incentivized system. So you would need to just like ban it outright with some kind of moral stance. Mongolia government know the fact that women. Let me get my voice again. Mongolia women know the fact women most value attention and social status. Even though Mongolia GDP grow fast, fertility rate not decrease like all the other country. It actually increase. How they do this? Mongolia celebration become a mother. They build a statue for the mother, have special days for recognition mothers, give awards on mothers. All these have one goal: give women social status and attention for become a mother mothers. Young girls see this now, they quickly find good man so they be mothers. Good. Let's. So he's gonna prattle about Mongolia. Well, you see, I'm gonna explain everything in this tweet exactly. He's just gonna read out the tweet, so we don't need to. We don't need to listen to stupid Sargon just yabber on about what this tweet says. I can read a tweet, Sargon. Thanks. Let's look up Mongolia fertility. 2.7. Mongolia's fertility has been fluctuating. A significant decline after socialism. The fall of socialism. Why do Central Asian countries have higher than replacement fertility rates? Because we fuck without contraception. No, I think that's overly simplistic. Okay, so stupid cuck Reddit is debating whether or not we should be anti-natalist or pro-natalist. I'm like asking, what's going on with East Asian countries and their fertility? And then the stupid comments are all like, is it good or is it bad? I don't know. It's like fucking dumb cunts. Mongolian fish market. Seems to be going down still. I don't know, guys. Like, it was at 3 in 2015. Now it's 2.7. I don't know. I don't know. People point to Mongolia as though it's this as this shining beacon of performance. But I don't know, guys. Oh, that's actually a pretty good population pyramid. That's not horrible. That's actually decent. I mean, that's still you can see right in the middle. There's a choke. But that's actually not a bad population. That's actually really good compared to what we have in the West. Let's ask ChatGPT, guys. Let's investigate the Mongolian fish market with our good friend ChatGPT. What's a library? Oh, okay. Hello, ChatGPT. How are you doing today?
Hey Nathan, I'm doing great.
That's fucking.
Thanks for asking. How about you?
Uh, so what is the fertility rate of Mongolia right now? Such a random question. That's awesome. Imagine starting a conversation that way. You just, hey there, what's the fertility rate?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Our systems are experiencing.
Fucking useless cunt. Fertility rate in Mongolia right now.
As of 2025, Mongolia's fertility rate is approximately 2.673 births per woman. This marks a slight decrease from 2024, when the rate was 2.702.
Is Mongolia unique compared to other countries? Or I saw a post and it says that like East Asian countries tend to have this trend. How does it compare to its neighbors?
Mongolia does stand out compared to some East Asian countries in terms of fertility rate. While many East Asian countries like Japan, South Korea, and China have been experiencing declining fertility rates, often well below replacement level, which is 2 births per woman, Mongolia's fertility rate is relatively high for the region. Mongolia's fertility rate of about 2.67 is above replacement level, which means the population can sustain itself without significant decline in the long term. This is in contrast to its neighbors. China, the fertility rate has been below replacement level for years, sitting at about 1.3 births per woman in recent years. Russia, the fertility rate 1.6, which is also below replacement level. Kazakhstan, similar to Mongolia, Kazakhstan has a fertility rate closer to 2.5, somewhat higher than other East
I
Asian
won't
nations,
load any
but
images.
still lower than Mongolia's. Mongolia's fertility
I
rate
can't load a
is
single
higher
image.
in
There we
part
go.
due to its cultural context and higher birth rates in rural areas. There is also less of the same social pressure for smaller families that's seen in many East Asian countries. So Mongolia is more aligned with countries in Central Asia and parts of Africa in terms of fertility, as opposed to the low fertility rates that dominate much of East Asia.
Okay, interesting. Huh.
Glad
So,
you found it interesting. If you have more questions or want to dive into another topic, feel free to ask.
so why? Let's look why. There's some pretty funny maps where all of the East Asian countries are sitting at like 1, and then there's Mongolia at like 2.7. But okay, so first thing I noticed, 2.7 isn't crazy. I mean, they used to have like a fertility rate of 7, and from the graph, it looks like they are decreasing. Like they used to be 3, and now they're only at 2. So we could analyze some things. One, what makes it different from its neighbors? Two, how does it hold a fertility rate above replacement, despite what seems to be happening globally? Three, why is it still falling regardless? Like, why isn't it doing good? And I guess, like, how would we explain what we see?
This is an interesting line of thinking, and you're right to analyze Mongolia's fertility rate in the context of broader regional trends. Let's break it down by your questions and explore the reasons behind Mongolia's situation. 1. What makes Mongolia different from its neighbors? Mongolia's fertility rate is higher compared to East Asian countries because of a combination of factors, including cultural influences. Mongolian society tends to value larger families more than many East Asian cultures, where there's more pressure for smaller, more economically manageable families. In Mongolia, there's a stronger emphasis on family and traditional ways of life, which could contribute to higher birth rates. Rural lifestyle. A significant portion of the population still lives in rural areas, where larger families are often viewed as more practical. More children can help with farming, livestock.
Okay, I'm just gonna read this because she's too slow. So we'll just do this and we'll be done. My suspicion is that Mongolia hasn't fully modernized. So yeah, it's like sitting at 3. But that's only because it hasn't been fully infected with Western virus. So this Sargon tweet we see here, I know how to solve fertility problem. Not really though, because you exist in a country that is still behind the times. It hasn't. It's not that it's developed immunity to the Western political virus. It's merely not had the virus in full effect yet. And yeah, she's kind of right. That is kind of what would be the answer. But the question is, how do you do that? How do you get there? It's not like people are going to want to just start banning sluts and slut shaming people. That's not going to be popular at all. How are you going to do that? And you need more than just this slut shaming too. So I think part of it is. So yes, value set, they're right, yes. And then the rural one I actually think is probably more important. How urban or how rural your population is. See, while Mongolia is urbanizing, it has a relatively lower level of industrialization. Yeah, so it's not fully industrialized. Because these things all go hand in hand. Once you industrialize, once you urbanize, once you give women rights, once you adopt democracy, once you adopt everyone is equal under the law and all this like kumbaya stuff and more capitalism and more Western innovation and focus on dala dala as your main value set, then the population goes down. And female education, don't forget education. Then women just stop having kids. Because kind of what you're doing, maybe in my perspective, is you're kind of just making women like men. You're treating them like men. And then women are just adopting roles as men. Right? They're having careers and they're trying to have a bunch of sex with a bunch of different people. Like that's a male trait, not a woman trait. Like maybe maybe their biology gets confused on some kind of primordial level and they start thinking that they're men because we're giving them rights and shit like that. Treating them as equals and like, oh, we're men. And then they start acting like it. Traditional family structure is younger, lower urbanization. Yeah. Some people right now are pointing to Mongolia as though it's this solution to the fertility crisis worldwide. There's a quote where it's like, I know how to solve the fertility problem in all the Western countries, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at Mongolia. And in Mongolia, they do this, 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 and that. But to me, it just more seems like maybe Mongolia hasn't received the full dosage of the modern Western virus yet. Like, they're still mostly rural. They still aren't fully industrialized. So could that maybe be why they are still above fertility rate or replacement rate for now, is because they just haven't faced the full brunt of like Western mind virus?
You're absolutely right to point out that Mongolia hasn't fully experienced the societal changes that many Western countries have gone through. And that could indeed be a significant factor in why it still maintains a higher fertility rate. The modern Western virus, as you put it, refers to the cultural and economic shifts that heavily influence fertility rates in industrialized nations. These shifts include things like the prioritization of individualism,
Blah, 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 dur, dur, dur. Westernism, yeah. Yes. So it's a bunch of things. Yeah, it's economic, but it's also values. So, all right, what's my summary, guys? Yes, Wei Wu is right. That would do it. We could try to create a value set of mothers and shame sluts. Maybe even ban them. Maybe even heavily restrict women's sexual autonomy. That would 100% work. But how do you get there? No one's going to like that. Boomers aren't going to like that. Politicians aren't going to like that. Women aren't going to like that. So how are you going to get that done? that's the question, right? How are you actually going to do that? Without some kind of, because that becomes less and less popular as a society westernizes, and as it like industrializes and gives women rights. These value sets seem to emerge organically from the environment that they get put into, which is like an urban environment. So then the people infected with the low fertility virus, uh, they then start defending that value set on their own. And that kind of becomes a problem. So yeah, I don't know how you would solve that, because that seems to be like an innate emergent value set from urbanizing, democratic, industrializing Western countries as they just slowly teeter off the fertility rate. I think we need to invent some kind of new solution. Well, there's two options. One, societal collapse, fascist takeover, right? Which nobody wants that. Or just recede some ground to the right wing people, and just they would have to win some kind of, maybe it wouldn't be like a violent military takeover, but they might become increasingly more popular, and they might cement some of their values in our political landscape, if possible. So that's one, is just we keep the current way of doing things, but we just give the right wing more power. The second one is like we try to invent some kind of like technological or socio-technological solution to get women to have kids. That could be like some kind of program that pays women to have kids. Except what all this really does is it just steals money from men, gives it to women once again. So then we create this kind of like socialist. It's going to be a socialist utopia. That's more likely what's going to happen, is we're going to start seeing the government try to step in and subsidize childcare, because then the government gets another area that it gets to have total domination and control over. And then it gets to slowly move the world in its little socialist global little hodgepodge, little kumbaya wet dream, right? The Fabian socialist wet dream. So that's more likely what's going to happen. I would kind of prefer to see like a violent reforming of America where people start losing their rights and things become uncomfortable. That would be my preference, because I think that would solve things a lot faster. This whole like, let's hopefully invent something that works. Eventually it's going to be too late. There was a video by Kurzgesagt where they framed the fertility crisis as like a train. That's actually accurate, because after a certain point, there's nothing you can really do, because the demographical pyramid just becomes unfixable. It becomes unfuckable, right? It's just completely fucked into the ground, because even if people started having kids, there's not enough of them to undo the population pyramid, and then you're going to lose like the majority of your population, and then all of the social institutions and social structures are going to lead to a economic and societal collapse anyway, even if you started reversing the fertility trends. I don't think we're at that period yet, but we're getting close. There's a ton of boomers that are going to start massively ruining the system. Like the next 2-3 generations are going to be hell for the country, because they're just going to be fucking brutal. It's just going to be a bunch of like all of our taxes are just going to go to like paying for boomers and paying for Social Security. Boomers are going to have to work into their like 60s, 70s, and 80s, and wham wham boohoo. So yeah, that's just the reality of the system we're stepping into. So that's my perspective. Let me know what you guys think. I don't think it's an easy. I think there's possible routes we could go to solve the fertility crisis. I'm open to some. If some like silly technological dude wants to invent some quirky solution to it, go right ahead. I don't have a problem with that. But I don't really have a lot of faith in that, and I don't have a faith in that innovation will come quickly enough and it will be adopted by good actors. I think instead we're going to see bad actors try to consolidate childbearing as a responsibility of the government, who will then take control of it and try to weaponize it as an excuse to impose like socialism. So with that, let me know what you guys think. I will see everybody later. Take care.